Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. Today is Q&A Wednesday, or Wednesday Q&A for those who prefer it that way around. Regardless of who you are or which way you prefer your Q&A, this is the day that we answer questions submitted on the YouTube comments page or via email or via direct message on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you want to reach out to me at. I can never figure that one out. Anyway, today we're going to jump straight into the questions. I've pulled 3 questions that sort of all follow or sort of all revolve around the idea of your idea, or of where you get your ideas from, or how you expand your ideas, that kind of thing. So let's jump straight into the questions for today. Our first question today comes from Marie Gallo, who asks, how do you get a sudden inspiration or idea when you're sitting by a desk looking into a white wall and you have a time limit to create something great and new? Do you have any ideas or tricks or anything? Well, actually, yes, I do. The first thing you need to do is make sure that when you sit down to start writing, you take that idea of creating something great and new and put it out of your head. I don't know if you've seen the video on this channel called The Writer's Block Instant Cure. It's probably the most popular, sort of by how many likes it gets to how many views it gets, video on this whole channel. I think it's like 10,000 likes or something already at this point. It's a great video. It's something that you should definitely watch. It's all about how to conquer writer's block once and for all. The link will be somewhere here. What you basically have to do is take that idea of good and new and put it entirely out of your mind. Because as soon as you start thinking about, I have to create something good, I have to create something great, I have to create something new, fresh, exciting, whatever, you are going to start judging everything that you write. And the whole point of FAST screenplay, the F-A-S-T, focus, apply, strengthen, tweak, is we take the process of writing, we break it into 4 distinct phases so that you don't judge yourself at the point in the process where you need to be free to just let your imagination go wherever it's going to go. The reality of writing is that there are 4 distinct phases. Now, those phases weren't invented by me. Those phases are simply plan or design, and then write, and then rewrite, and then polish. Those are the 4 phases of writing. If you imagine that it's going to spill out of your head as something new and great, then you're jumping to the polish phase. I better stop doing that in case I pointed the wrong phase. You may jump to the polish phase a little bit too early, and you're going to then interrupt that part of the process where you're really tapping into and capturing the creative subconscious, all that stuff that's happening in the background of your brain and your imagination based on your life experience and based upon everything that you know and based upon all the inputs that you've had along the way. We want to make sure to tap into that. That's where the magic comes from. The magic comes from a place that you don't control. The magic comes from a place that is not your conscious focus. You can very deliberately, consciously focus on designing something that allows for greatness. You can very consciously focus on improving something that's not quite great but could be great. But you cannot capture magic. You cannot capture the thing that you focus on. That's not the place where the creative greatness or newness comes from, okay? So what you really want to do is break it down into those 4 phases. You can sit down and you can sort of flesh out the kind of thing you might want to write. That's the focus phase of the process. Then you can blast something onto the page. Just see what spontaneously comes up through your active imagination. Then once you have it, then you go back through and you refine it. You go, well, I like this part. Let's take this further. Or I don't really like this part. Let's shape that. But if you just think of creating something great, you're already putting yourself in judgment mode. And if you already put yourself in judgment mode, it becomes impossible. It becomes constricting to actually capture those ideas that are swimming around in your brain automatically. So that's the first part. Break it into the 4 phases of the process. You can watch the video. I've got another video called How to Write Fast on this channel. You can get my book. You can do my screenwriting system. I'll show you how to break all this stuff down in increasing levels of detail, starting with the very simple version on YouTube to the much more complex version in the book to the extremely elaborate version in the Fast Screenplay system. But one way or another, break it down into those processes and you get much further, much faster. Now, if you're talking about simply looking at a blank wall, where did these ideas come from? What you want to do ultimately is you want to start with anything. Give yourself a prompt of any kind. It can be, you could ask yourself, what do I want to write? What's the kind of thing that I would like to create? And just spit that onto the page. I mean, write it, type it, whatever. You see what I'm saying? So get it out onto the page and then just keep writing. Just don't think. Do the exercise in that Writer's Block Instant Cure video. Or if you're so inclined, do the 10-day free start of Fast Screenplay. Day number 4, step number 4. We basically go into a much more elaborate version of that exercise. So it's really all about silencing that inner critic. It's really all about stopping the judgment, and we're going to delay and postpone the judgment. See where your imagination takes you, because it's not going to come right off the top of your head initially, immediately. It's really going to come from discovery. It's going to come from letting it out of your creative subconscious. It's there. It's in your brain already. It's a matter of opening up the floodgates and letting it pour out. You can't do that if you're judging yourself, and you can't do that if you're starting with good, with a judgment as your end goal. Because judge anything, good, great, bad, sucky, all of that is a value judgment. It's an assessment. You're not even the right person to judge that, right? Until something is completely finished and you can look at it objectively and say, even then, it's not good, it's not great, it's not bad, it's not sucky. It is effective or ineffective. And if it's ineffective, how is it ineffective? Let's make it more effective. Make sense? Now go right. Next up, we have a question from Autumn Greenleaf. So how do you write what's in your head when the idea is a bunch of pictures? This is actually a pretty good question, actually. You write a movie. One of the quotes that I came up with long ago is that they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. In screenwriting, we write pictures. So the whole point of screenwriting is to write the pictures, to describe what those pictures are, to show the pictures to the audience. If all you see are the pictures, the images, what you want to start to do is figure out how to describe those images in such a way that when someone reads the page, they're going to see the picture you saw. So imagine you see a bus, sort of school bus action movie scene, a school bus empty. Let's just say it's empty for the sake of the kids. It's careening off the edge of a mountain, right? The very ledge, and it's sort of dangling precariously over the edge. If that's the image you see, what you want to write is as near to that picture as possible. A school bus careens sideways down the road, losing control, its back wheels slipping over the edge of the cliff. Right? Something as simple as that. If I'm reading that back, I'm going to see, maybe not exactly the picture that you see, but I'm going to see the picture you see. That's what screenwriting is. Well, that's really what all writing, but that's specifically what screenwriting is all about, is figuring out how in as few words as possible to paint that picture. So I think what's implied in this question is perhaps that you think in pictures, that you think visually. A lot of people who are in the film industry are writers or are directors or actors or cinematographers or producers or people that they think the pictures because I'm a movie person. I think pictures all the time, right? So maybe a little more resistant to finding the words to convey those. And really, that's ultimately just a skill you have to learn and develop as you go along. Don't judge yourself. Similar to the earlier question, don't judge the quality of your writing as you're writing. What you want to do is just take the picture and try to figure out how to get it in words for the words to give the reader that picture as clear as possible and as few of words as possible. It's going to take a little bit of time if you're new to it, if you're not a natural writer, if you haven't been writing for years and years, or it's just not your intuitive way to write. If you think in pictures, but how can you sell your screenplay? How can you sell your movie idea if you don't have it written down somehow? Well, we've got to develop that skill. It's not as hard as you think, though, either, because if you just imagine, and this may be another little exercise to try, if you just imagine someone is blindfolded, right? And without being able to use your hands like I do all in these videos, you're going to try to convey to that person what you see. What are you going to say to them? All right, well, there's this bus, and as it makes this turn around this mountain road where the road is elevated at the edge of a cliff, as it goes around this, it loses its back wheel footing. I don't know what those words would be. And the wheels scrape and drag over the edge of the cliff. What you need to try to do is put that picture in their head, right? You could probably do it audibly through describing that picture. Well, then just take those words, pop it into a dictaphone or your notes app on your voice app on your phone, and just record it and then write those words down. See what they look like. Then is there a way to shape those? Is there a way to make those more concise? Is there a way to get that picture across with fewer words, maybe more dynamically even? So instead of a car, the bus's wheels go over the edge of the cliff, maybe they screech over the edge of the cliff. Or as they're screeching, one tire slips over the edge, right? So you want to create a visually dynamic way of painting that picture for that reader. And lastly today, username RayOfficial says, I have a lot of ideas for movies, but I always find it very difficult to expand my ideas and add story and characters to make it into a film. Please tell me how to work on an idea to expand it and make it a feature-length screenplay. So now, actually, this is a pretty common question in general. If you didn't see yesterday's episode about the three-act structure, you can probably get some ideas from that one. But what I want to talk about here to answer your question today is usually when someone has an idea for a movie, they have an idea for a scene or maybe a character or some line of dialogue or a situation, but they don't necessarily have the full story idea. Now, one of the differences between short film and feature film is that short film is sort of focused on one idea that you sort of go deeply into or that you encapsulate. And then a feature-length movie is a 90-minute to 2-hour, sometimes longer, exploration of a character journey through some situation or series of situations. If what you're seeing in your imagination is just that one scene or a couple of scenes or some cool things a character might be doing, then it's going to be really hard to expand that into feature length unless you take a step back and think, where's the character at the beginning of the story? And then where does the character end at the end of the story? And what is the journey they've gone through? And what is the change that has happened either to them or to someone around them or to the place or the situation itself? If you haven't watched the other videos on this channel, be sure to have a look through this channel, because one of the things we talk about is my contention is that all story is trying to say something, whether you intend it or not. And if all story is trying to say something, how does it say something? Well, it says something by watching change, by watching something change. Usually it's the central character. Usually it's the hero character, the main character of your story, where they start one way, they go through a series of events, they change in some way, they grow, they learn something, they become a better person, whatever it might be. And then at the end, they're different somehow. And by seeing how they've changed, that's how we convey the meaning or the point, the purpose, or the message that we're trying to get across. If all you're seeing are a couple cool scenes or a character or different, or only glimpses of that, right? This one little scene out of it or this scene over here out of it, You need to be able to pull back and see what the whole story is going to be. You need to pull back and figure out, A, what you're trying to say, B, how you want to say it, how you want to go about demonstrating that change. Remember that, I don't know if you saw the earlier video about the rewrite process, but there's that whole idea of the big picture. Then there's the whole idea of the whole story beneath it, which is the expression of the story that conveys the big picture idea. If you don't have that, then you're not yet going to have a feature-length movie idea. And in order to make any idea into that, you need to be able to see what the mechanics are of that. So my advice to you is, to work on an idea, to expand it into that, you go initially to what is the thing that you're most passionate about with this idea. Go initially to what excites me about this? What makes me want to tell this story? What am I trying to convey? If it's, for example, you just love action scenes and you have this cool idea for an action movie, right? You have the scene, you have a couple of scenes in mind, you can sort of see how that would play out as an action movie. You can expand from that. You can expand it from, we want to see this action. Well, what kind of character would be in this situation where this would happen to them? Is it something that's happening to them? Is it something they're deliberately making to happen? Is it something that they started down one road and things got out of control as they went along and the action escalates from that? There are many ways to get to it, but what you have to think about is, where is your character starting and where is your character, the other way around, where's the character starting, where's the character ending, and what is the journey they're going on that makes that change happen? That's this sort of simplistic way. Now, ultimately, this is sort of the key question to it all. This is the question that is what writing is all about. How do you expand it into something? How do you take it further? How do you make it deeper? How do you make it bigger? And really, it's just all about exploring those ideas, learning the techniques of storytelling. There's a lot of techniques involved. There's story structure. There you can design subplots into it. If you think about subplots, what is a parallel journey that might be happening to your main character's journey? So, for example, the typical sort of parallel journey would be the opponent's journey, right? So as the character's trying to achieve this one thing, the opponent is trying to achieve something else. So we can cut back and forth between those two. That's filling out story. You may have a secondary character, a love story that goes along the side, or an offshoot of what the main story might be. So you could fill a feature length with subplot. You could fill a feature length with digging into some of their motivation for why they've done that. What's the backstory that happened? And tell multiple threads of story. Usually, if you're telling a feature length film, you're going to have multiple threads of story, because we want to be able to. It can get a little tedious just watching one character go on one singular journey through a whole story. Not that it's not possible, but it can get tedious. So we often like to see subplots, and we like to see a filled out story itself. So ultimately, the answer to the question is you practice, right? So if you have lots of ideas for movies. So here, let me ask you this, and I know that you're not able to answer me directly, but take this as a question for everyone watching. If you say you have lots of ideas for movies, but you don't know how to expand your idea into a feature-length story, do you actually have lots of ideas for movies, or do you have maybe lots of scene ideas? Which is fair enough. That's certainly a starting point. But to have lots of ideas for movies, you need to have lots of ideas for keeping the audience's interest and take them on a full journey, a full story over the course of an hour and a half. That's a movie idea. A movie idea isn't just one scene, or isn't just a situation, a bank heist movie. That's not really a movie idea, right? The movie idea would be, a guy decides he's going to rob a bank because he's got to pay for medical bills for his ailing daughter, and as he gets into it, he gets trapped and caught and boxed up and packaged and sent to another country where now he has to figure out where he is and get. You see what I'm saying? Like that's okay. That's maybe not a good idea. Maybe, I don't know. In the hands of a good writer, challenge. Anyway, the reality is that that's more of a movie idea simply because there's more to it. It's broader. It's not just the one scene. It's not just the bank heist. Or if it is just the bank heist, we're going to look at all the different aspects and nuances maybe of the bank heist, right? So I don't know what your ideas are, and I don't know what what challenge you're actually having to expand it. So my advice has to be a little bit general, but my advice is, in general, similar to the earlier questions, is to break it down into that 4-phase writing process. Join me if you can, because we go way deep into it, and I give you hundreds of techniques and tools and stuff all throughout the entire process. But if not, break it down into those 4 phases, and then go through each of those 4 phases. Design, flesh out your story, expand it, map it out, and figure out what's going to happen over the course of the hour and a half. Where does your character start? Where do they end? And flesh it out and keep going. And don't judge yourself along the way. It's okay if your initial draft is terrible. At least you got an initial draft written, and you can identify what's ineffective about it, and then you can go through and you can improve it. Don't think that you have to make something extraordinary when that idea pops into your head. Most writers who've written feature-length movies, the idea didn't come out of their head fully formed, right? They didn't go, hey, I have an idea for a movie that goes on these little nuances, and then there's this subtext and this thing. Like, this is something people work on. This is something that they take time to develop. So don't berate yourself if the idea that you have doesn't yet feel like a feature. As you go through the work of going through the process itself, that's how you're going to flesh it out. That's how you're going to take it from something simple and make it something elaborate and complex and an enjoyable experience for the audience that's going to take them on that journey and teach them something that they didn't know about themselves or the world or the characters or you or whatever. They're going to like it. Especially if you go through it as I'm presenting it, because my whole idea is built upon making a compelling promise and then exceeding their expectations. So you take them on this journey and you set things up so that they're expecting it to go one way, and you take them a little bit of another way, and they go, whoa, that's way beyond where I thought the story was going to go. Dazzling, exciting, sign the check, here you go, let's make this movie, right? Okay, not quite that easy, but that's the idea. So anyway, that's going to be today's Q&A. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions about any of this or new questions, something you'd like me to address in my unique, passionate sort of way, pop them in the comments below on the YouTube channel here. Send me an email, send me a direct message through Instagram or Twitter. Make sure you're subscribed and click the bell to get notified of new videos when they come out. And then we'll see you tomorrow for Throwback Thursday. Sound like a plan? Good. What are we going to do between now and then? This is your daily prompt. Take action today. Don't let another minute go by without taking some action on your project, on your writing, on getting you closer to where you're trying to go. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.